Once upon a time, in the heart of Africa, there was a small peaceful village called Hijen. For many years, no crime had ever been committed in the village. Everyone knew the punishments were deadly. One man who was caught stealing a fowl on one occasion was lashed severely, and another who was caught in an affair with another man's wife had his balls immediately cut off. The village had no mercy for wrongdoers, and fear had kept the village peaceful. No one dared to break the rules. In this same village lived a man named Papa K. Papa K owned a little store where he sold meat and soup. His food was always cheap, and his soup was full of flavor. People from far and near came to his store. Everyone praised his cooking, saying that he cooked even better than the women who also sold food in the same village. But his meat was what everyone loved the most. Papa K, we want to know your secret. How do you prepare your food? We want to know your recipe, one of the customers asked. No, Papa K, tell us. Where exactly do you get your meat? It tastes so out of this world. Another customer interrupted. Papa K replied, My brothers, it's human meat. They all looked at each other in shock. Turns out Papa K is also a comedian, one man said, and just like that, they all burst into laughter, ignoring Papa K's words. In the village, no one knew exactly where Papa K got his meat. One special thing about his pepper soup was the price. No one could beat it. It was so cheap that even the poorest villagers could afford a full meal at his store. Other sellers in the village couldn't understand it. How does he manage to sell so cheap? They would ask each other, puzzled. Slowly, many of the other sellers gave up. One by one, they closed their shops because customers only wanted Papa K's soup. His prices are too low, they complained. It's impossible to compete with him. In the village, there was also only one hospital, a private hospital. Something strange had been happening. For many years, no woman in the village gave birth to a baby boy. Women would get pregnant and dream of holding babies, but their dreams often turned into nightmares. Many pregnancies ended in sorrow. Some babies were born dead. Others came into the world with twisted limbs or weak bodies that could not survive long. And in all these cases, the babies were girls. The villagers didn't understand why this was happening. Why do our wives give birth to only baby girls? One man asked. Maybe our land is cursed. Another replied, his voice trembling. In this village, there lived a young woman named Nikki. She was married to Nathaniel, a kind and caring man. Nikki was 9 months pregnant, and they were both excited to meet their baby. Nikki was very sure she'd give birth to a baby boy and bring an end to the supposed curse that plagued the village. One afternoon, Nathaniel was resting under a tree when he heard a loud scream. He jumped, his heart racing. It was Nikki. Nathaniel! She cried. The baby is coming! Nathaniel ran to her side. She was in pain, and he knew he had to get her to the hospital quickly. He helped her outside, his hands shaking as he finally got to the car outside. Stay strong, Nikki, he said. We are going to the hospital. They finally arrived at the hospital. When they got to the entrance, Nathaniel shouted, Help! My wife is in labor! His voice shook with fear and urgency. A nurse ran out with a stretcher. Bring her here, she said. Nikki was raised onto the stretcher. She cried out in pain, holding her belly tightly. The nurse pushed the stretcher inside as fast as she could, with Nathaniel following, his heart racing and his hands trembling. They wheeled Nikki into a small delivery room. The doctor came in quickly, putting on gloves and giving orders to the nurses. Nikki groaned loudly, her body weak and covered in sweat. Nathaniel tried to stay, but the nurse stopped him. You must wait outside, the doctor said to him. We will take care of her." Nathaniel hesitated but nodded. Inside the room, the delivery began. Nikki's pain was unbearable. She screamed and pushed with all her strength. "You are doing well," the doctor said. "Keep pushing. You are almost there." Nikki shook her head, tears falling. "I can't," she said. "I'm too tired." "Yes, you can," a nurse said kindly. "Just one more push. You can do it." Nikki clenched her teeth and pushed as hard as she could. Finally, after what felt like forever, the sound of a baby crying filled the room. The loud cry echoed in the small space, bringing relief to everyone. However, Nikki fell asleep due to the stress and exhaustion. Meanwhile, Nathaniel waited outside as instructed. He paced back and forth, his heart full of worry and excitement. He couldn't wait to hold his baby in his arms. Inside the delivery room, something strange began to happen. Nikki had fallen into a deep sleep after the long and tiring delivery. The doctor looked at the nurse, and their eyes met in silent understanding. The nurse turned to the doctor and whispered, "A baby boy. Should I do the swab?" The doctor's face was cold. "Do it quickly," he said in a low voice, "before someone comes in." The nurse took a deep breath. The child cried louder, as if sensing something was wrong. The nurse quickly covered his mouth, held the baby close to her chest, and glanced around the room. She moved toward a locked door at the far end of the hall, looking around to make sure no one was following her. Then, she entered the secret room. In one corner of the room, there was a crib. Inside the crib lay a baby, a weak, skinny baby girl. She pushed the door open quietly, trying to stay calm as she walked in. She went straight to the crib beside Nikki and gently placed the baby girl inside. Its cries were soft and weak, barely loud enough to hear. Outside, Nathaniel had no idea what was happening. He sat on the wooden bench, praying for his wife and baby, while the nurse's terrible secret remained hidden in the quiet hospital room. The hospital wasn't what it seemed to the villagers. It looked like a place of healing, where women could bring their babies into the world safely. But behind its calm walls and caring smiles, the hospital hid a dark secret. The doctors and nurses worked together, not to save lives, but to steal healthy babies from their mothers and replace them with unhealthy, weak or disabled ones. The mothers, exhausted and trusting, never knew the truth. They believed the lies that the hospital staff told them. Only strong women who could give birth with their eyes open were able to keep their healthy babies. The others, weakened by the intentionally delayed delivery, would fall asleep from stress. When they woke up, their babies had been switched. The nurses would say, "We are sorry, your baby was born this way." "You can come in now," the doctor said to Nathaniel. Nathaniel walked in and saw his baby girl. He carried her in his arms, singing to her with love. After some time, Nikki woke up. Her body felt weak, but her heart was filled with joy. She turned her head and called out, "Nurse, where's my baby? Bring me my child." The nurse walked in, holding the weak baby girl. She placed the baby gently into Nikki's arms. Nikki blinked, staring at the child. Her smile faded. "Nurse," she said slowly, her voice shaking, "I asked for my healthy baby boy, and not someone else's baby." The nurse stood straight and said firmly, "This is your child, Ma. You gave birth to a baby girl." Nikki's hands trembled as she looked at the baby again. "Stop this nonsense," she snapped. "Give me my child." The nurse's face hardened. "This is your child, Ma," she repeated. Nikki's voice grew louder. "You are lying! I gave birth to a healthy boy. I saw my child before I slept off. This is not my baby." Hearing the noise, Nathaniel stepped closer and tried to calm her down. "Nikki, please take it easy. The nurse said this is our baby. Why are you being stubborn? Besides, what do they have to gain by lying to us? But Nikki turned to him, her eyes blazing with anger. They have stolen our baby and given us someone's child, and you want me to calm down? Are you blind, Nathaniel? This is not our child. Nathaniel was torn between believing his wife and the nurse. The nurse raised her voice. Ma, you need to stop shouting. This is your baby. You gave birth to this child. Nikki screamed. You are lying. I said give me my baby boy or else I will not stop shouting. The argument grew louder, and soon other nurses rushed into the room. They stood beside the first nurse, their faces cold and unfriendly. One of them said, Ma, you need to accept this child. This is your baby. Stop making trouble. The nurses added, Ma, please, we don't take intimidation here. Accept your baby girl. She is your baby. Nikki glared at them, her voice shaking with rage. You are all liars. This hospital is evil. You must give me my baby boy today. The nurses exchanged glances but said nothing. They knew their secret was at risk. One of the nurses said, Ma, please calm down. Stop shouting. She didn't want Nikki to draw attention of the villagers outside, but Nikki didn't stop. Her cries and shouts echoed through the hospital. Villagers began to gather outside on the corridor, curious about the commotion. They whispered amongst themselves. The village's wise elder, Elder Sam, asked, What is going on here, young lady? Why are you shouting? Trying to cover up, one of the nurses said, Nothing, Elder Sam. Just a little misunderstanding. We will sort it out. Nikki refused to back down. She clutched her baby tightly, her hands shaking but her spirit strong. This is not my child, Elder Sam. They have stolen my baby. I gave birth to a baby boy and they tell me it was a girl. I will not leave here until they've given me my child. The nurses stood in silence, but their faces showed unease. Nathaniel stood by her, helpless, as more villagers poured into the hospital, their voices rising with questions and demands for answers. The tension in the air grew heavier. The truth about the hospital's dark secret was hanging by a thread. Elder Sam listened quietly and then said, Nikki, calm down. Let us handle this. But Nikki was shaking with anger. Nurse Ifoma, who had delivered Nikki's child, was becoming scared. She wanted to leave the scene, but Nikki turned to her and grabbed her dress. You must give me my baby boy. You will not leave here today, she screamed. Nurse Ifoma tried to pull away, but Nikki held her tightly. Let's go, the nurse shouted, but Nikki refused. The villagers began murmuring, their voices growing louder. Elder Sam raised his hand again. Enough, he said. He saw the seriousness in Nikki's eyes and added, Please, you people should just give her her child. But the nurses insisted that this was her child. We will search the hospital, Elder Sam declared. The nurses began to make excuses. There is nothing to find, one of them said. This is the only baby here. You will not find any other child in this hospital. But the villagers and their anger refused to listen. They spread out and started searching the hospital. Room by room, they found nothing, until someone noticed a locked door at the back of the hospital. What is behind this door? A young man asked. One of the nurses stepped forward nervously. This room is not used anymore. We don't have the key, she said quickly. The villagers didn't believe her. If the key is missing, break the padlock. We will buy a new one for your hospital, one of the youths shouted. The nurse began to argue. No, you can't do that. This is hospital property. Hey, Madam Nurse, break the padlock. We will buy a new one. If you have nothing to hide, then break the padlock. No, you can't do this. But the men insisted and were determined. They pushed past the nurse and broke the lock with a heavy stone. The door creaked open slowly. What they saw inside made them freeze. The room was dark and smelled terrible. In one corner of the room, they saw dozens of tiny cribs and dirty blankets. There were babies inside, some alive, crying softly, their tiny hands reaching out. Others lay still, lifeless and cold. In another corner, they saw something even worse. Babies had been slaughtered, their small bodies wrapped in nylon bags. Gasps filled the air. Elder Sam's face was filled with pain as he spoke. This hospital is evil. They steal and sell babies. No wonder the women in our village never gave birth to baby boys. The hospital's dark secret had enraged the entire village. They dragged out the nurses, including Nurse Ifoma, who had delivered Nikki's child. Fortunately, Nikki's child was found. The nurses were taken to the village square, made to sit on the floor for everyone to see their evil deeds. Their faces were filled with fear. Their bodies trembled as the villagers shouted angrily around them. They knew what was coming. The punishment would be severe. The villagers weren't finished. Their anger burned hotter when they thought about the owner of the private hospital. He was the owner, so he must have a part to play in this evil. Someone shouted. The crowd roared in agreement. A large group of men marched towards the hospital owner's home, their footsteps shaking the ground as they moved together, their faces dark with anger. The hospital owner, named Mr. Joel, was a tall man with a hard look in his eyes. His face was sharp, and he always kept his beard neat. He seemed calm, but deep inside, he was a monster. His actions showed the evil hidden in his heart. When the villagers reached the hospital owner's house, they didn't knock or wait. They stormed in, kicking the door open. The house was large, but as they stepped closer, a foul smell filled the air. The villagers covered their noses, their eyes scanning the compound for clues. Then, they finally entered the house. In the middle of the house, they found Papa K, the village cook. He was sitting next to the hospital owner, and what they saw made their hearts freeze. Papa K was loading small bundles of something into a big bag. The bundles were moving. They were babies, fresh, healthy babies. The villagers stared in shock as Papa K and the hospital owner froze. The truth hit them like thunder. Papa K was buying babies. "What is this?" Elder Sam shouted, his voice shaking with anger. The hospital owner tried to explain, but his words came out in stutters. "It's not what it looks like," Papa K said, but no one believed him. The crowd erupted in anger. Some of the men grabbed Papa K and the hospital owner. "You will both face justice," one of them shouted. They tied their hands and dragged them out of the house, heading to the village square. After dragging all the criminals to the village square, the entire community gathered there, their faces full of anger and disbelief. The truth was out, and the evil of the hospital was exposed. Everyone wanted to know the whole truth. Elder Sam stood in the center, his face hard with anger. "Speak the truth now," he commanded the nurses. "What have you done?" At first, the nurses stayed quiet, their heads bowed, but the crowd shouting grew louder, and someone gave one of them a heavy slap. They could not hide anymore. One of the nurses broke down and cried, "We steal the babies from others. We sell them. We also steal people's vital organs and sell them." The crowd gasped, their shock turning to rage. But the nurse wasn't done. She pointed toward Papa K. "We also give some babies to Papa K. He uses them to cook his food." The crowd froze. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the horror of what they had just heard sank in. Some villagers held their stomachs, their face pale. Others began to vomit, remembering all the meals they had eaten at Papa K's shop. "Papa K?" someone shouted. "No wonder your meat is so cheap." Papa K screamed and begged for mercy, but what he had done was too intense. Elder Sam raised his voice. This evil must not continue. These people have committed great sins. They are sinners, but these are actual devils. Yes, someone shouted from the crowd. They do not deserve to live. We must get rid of them immediately. For what they have done, they deserve death. We must kill them. They have killed so many innocent babies, deprived so many mothers the opportunity to feel the warmth of their babies. We must kill them. Kill them. Yes, they deserve to die for the atrocities they have committed. We cannot tolerate such evil in our community. But we must remember one thing. We must never take the law into our own hands. No matter how grave a crime is, we must always report it to the appropriate authorities. Elder Sam had called the police officers who came and took the criminals away. He spoke one last time to the villagers. Let this day remind us all of the price of evil. Let us protect our village from darkness. Taking the law into our own hands may seem like a quick way to seek justice, but it often leads to chaos, wrongful punishment in some cases, and even greater harm. The legal system exists to ensure fairness, protect the innocent, and uphold order through proper investigation and judgment. When individuals act out of anger or frustration without following legal procedures, they risk punishing the wrong person, escalating conflicts, and facing legal consequences themselves. True justice is not about revenge, but about due process, where evidence is examined and fair decisions are made by the appropriate authorities. No matter the situation, it is always wiser to report crimes, disputes, or injustices to law enforcement and relevant institutions, allowing them to handle matters lawfully and prevent further harm to society. Let us always remember that we cannot take the law into our own hands. May we never see such sorrow again. With those words, the entire village nodded. Yes, they wished for revenge, but like Papa K said, we should not take the law into our own hands. We should refer crime to the appropriate authorities. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like this. God richly bless you. Catch you in the next video.